Alrighty, so today we're gonna be working with buyers. Same thing as always, if everybody can unmute themselves, because the more interaction we get, the better. The more conversation we can have, the better. You all have the handout that I gave to you, and it's the one labeled working with buyers. I also have a slideshow that we're gonna go over. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a lot of the material that Karen talked about with agency, right? And then she kind of went off and started talking about work with buyers and things along those lines. And we're just going to take that and we're going to elaborate, and we're going to have a full hour, hour and a half specifically on that process. So we're going to pretend that today at noon, you're going to get a random phone call from somebody, and they're going to say, hey, Craig, hey, Chip, hey, Ray, hey, Kelly, hey, Chris, I want to buy a house. Cool. What do we do from there? So do you all have the handout? Awesome. So if we look here, the initial buyer consultation, and we're going to go back and forth, and we have Chris Nato on the Zoom with us too, who worked with a number of buyers. So he's going to also interject and add some of his things. This is short bullet points, but we can, expand on it. So when the person called, ask the questions over the phone, and then you feel free to add your own. So Chris, when a new buyer calls you up, what do you do first and foremost?
Well, first I build some rapport with them, but as far as, some of the first questions I asked are, one, are you currently working with an agent to help you find the home of your choice? Because, I've seen it before. Sometimes you'll wind up with somebody that calls you up and says, I got to see this house. I got to see this house. And, when we're new, we want to jump right on that. We're all excited. Sweet. We got a showing. You go out and you show them the house, only to find out that they had no intention of writing any offers with you. Their cousin's an agent, and they don't want to waste their cousin's time. So they're seeing houses with you, and they're going to write it with their cousin. So definitely ask if they're working with an agent. And then another big important question I ask them right off the rip is if they've spoken with a lender. Perfect. And we're going to talk about that towards the end of this initial phase one. And that's a great question to ask. Are you working with an agent? People are kind of brash nowadays, where they'll call you because their agent is at a birthday party and they can't show the house. Hey, are you working with an agent? Yeah, my agent's just busy today. I want you to show me the house. Like, I have nothing better to do than to show a random stranger a house. And at that point, you have to make a decision. Is that something that you want to do, or is it, is your time more valuable? I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll continue to say it, that the only commodity you can't get back in life is time. So if you can weed out some of the tire kickers right from the jump, by all means do that. And if they're working with another agent, then have them talk to their other agent. If they are, ask the follow-up question. Well, if you're working with another agent, why are you calling me? What's the situation? What's the deal? Dig a little deeper, because maybe they don't want to continue to work with their agent. Maybe they didn't sign the exclusive buyer agency agreement. Maybe they just were customers and not a client, as Karen talked about the other day. Another important question, and this is all over the phone. So what you should all do is you should write all of this down or take notes next to, the handouts, but create your own one-page. That way, whenever anybody calls, you already have it right there, and it's almost either memorized or you have it super quick where you could jot it down. Because there's going to be times when you're driving, there's going to be times when you, are doing something else. And a lot of times, if you tell a buyer, hey, listen, I'll call you back in an hour, within that hour, they're going to call 37 other realtors. People have the patience of my son when he was 2 years old. So keep that in mind. So I would have it in your head, and I would also have it written down for those times that you're driving. So ask the question, who's buying the home? And Kelly, why would that be an important question to ask?
Probably to make sure if they're all there when they go to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Who are the decision makers, right? If you're looking to buy a home, who's buying? Oh, is it husband and wife, husband and husband? Is it boyfriend, girlfriend? Whatever the case is, we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. It is the kiss of death in sales when you explain something to person A and then they try to say to person B. We all play the telephone game in 3rd grade where the teacher would whisper in somebody's ear, and by the time they got to the last student, it was a completely different sentence. We're not expecting our clients to understand the way that we talk in real estate. That's why we have to explain it to both parties. What is your timeline? Chip, why would that be a good question?
Because if they're not looking to buy like right now, then that's good for you to know. But if they're looking to buy it's right now, it's also good for you to know. So if they don't want to buy for like another 6 months, or if they don't have enough saved up, then that's a really crucial piece of information.
Yeah, and it presets the expectations, right? You know that if they're looking to buy today, that you have to kind of rush. You have to manipulate your schedule around that. I had a client of mine called me up. It was through a referral from one of my lenders over at Capcom. And he basically said that this was back in July. He said, Ryan, I have to be in the house by September because my son is special needs and he has to be in this school district and I need to have residency here. There's no apartments. I want to buy a house. There's 2 houses for sale in his area. He's like, can we just go see both of them today? Saw both of them. He goes, all right, I want to buy this one right now. Full asking price, no questions asked. Let's close. And it was just because he had to do it. Now, does real estate transactions always happen that smoothly and quickly? No, it was the greatest one ever. Literally got a phone call, showed him a house that day, already pre-approved. And then he put the offer in that night, got accepted, closed in like 3-4 weeks. All right. So if you understand the expectations of the buyer, then you can work with them on that. Where do you want to live? Right? We want to have a general idea of where they want to live. I base everything off of the school district. It's always easier in our search criteria to base it off a school district. If somebody says, I want to live in between, road X and road Y in a 3-house development, it's going to be impossible to find them a property. But if we can start our search very broad and we have a whole entire school district to look in, perfect. In this crazy seller's market, I tell my buyers, I'm like, give me 3 or 4 different school districts you want to work in or you want to live in, right? Because if you are handcuffed to just one, we have to make sure we match your timeline with the expectations. If you say, Ryan, I only want to be in Shellmont schools in a colonial, 3,000 square feet or more, then we are in for a long haul, right? So we have to make sure we manage their expectations with that. What style of home? This is perfect if you're dealing with a couple, right? Because one person might want a condo, one person might want a single family home. We have to get them both on the same page, or at least have that search where we can see both properties and have them figure out what they want to do. What is your budget? Now, Chris, why would I ask, what is your budget?
Well, because it's super important to know where they'd like to be. There's a difference in what they're pre-qualified for and what they actually want to spend.
When you ask somebody what their budget is, they'll tell you a number, right? I've had friends, and I'm sure we all have friends that are like this, where it's like, hey, how much do you want to spend? I got the money. Like, I don't know. I don't know your financials. I have no idea about you. I know that, you live over here. But when you ask them what their budget is, you ask the follow-up question. When they say, I want to be up to 300,000, awesome. Have you talked to a lender yet? Well, no. Okay, well, that's the first step. The first step is talking to a lender. And you're doing this all while creating rapport with your buyers. And that's what we want to do. We want to give them information. We also want to get information and create that rapport with them. Should be about a 5-minute phone call. And then remember when Brian said everything we should do is intentional? My intention of this initial phone call is to get them to come to the office. So before I hang up with them, I say, Craig, this is great information. What day this week works best for you to come to the office so we can talk about the home buying process? You give me a time, and I say, if it works, we put it in the calendar. So you say, Monday at 4:00. Awesome. Monday, 4:00, 2331 Troy Schenectady Road, my office. I'll see you there. I have changed my stance from when I first started real estate to where I am now, where I won't meet anybody unless they meet at my office first. I just won't do it. And the reason why is because I want to get everything so out in the open from the jump, from the start, that it doesn't leave anything open for interpretation later on. Right? There were times back in the day where I'd be so excited that a new buyer called me and I would say, awesome, cool. Let's meet at the house right now. Let's go. And having them sign disclosures on the hood of their car at 6 o'clock at night when it's dark out and they have no idea what they're signing, nor do they want to sign because they just met you. Right? When you're going to meet a doctor, the doctor doesn't say, yeah, come on in anytime. I'll see you soon. Right? You set up an appointment, you set up a schedule. So I want to get them to come to the office and I want to have a sit down with them and I want to show them everything, because people think they understand the buying process because mom and dad bought a house in 1965 and they told them the process then. I want to show them my information and I want them to sign all the disclosures right there in my office. So that way they turn a client or a customer into a client. All right. I want them to walk out, and that is my intention from step number 2. So, Ray, what would be another good question I can ask them during the initial buyer consultation?
When you have them on the phone call or in the office?
When you have them in the phone call, the initial phone call.
You can ask who's buying the house. Ask them what the, well, you already did the time frame.
Yep.
Besides their budget.
Chip, what do you think? What's another question we could ask them?
Well, I would ask like if they're looking for any specific features like a pool or like a yard or something, or anything big in the house, more specific stuff.
Perfect. Awesome. And that's another great question to ask, because what you're doing with that is you're building rapport. Make sure you remember, if they say they're looking for an in-ground pool, you write that down on your piece of paper that they're looking for an in-ground pool. Craig, what's another question you could ask to add to our list?
Maybe what do they have left on the remaining, mortgage, or
do they have a house to sell, or are you
right?
Renting? Right. What is your situation? What's your current living situation? Are you living with relatives? Are you renting? Are you currently looking to sell your home and then buy a home? Right? Because that changes the whole dynamic. We're now taking a buyer and we're going to turn that into maybe a listing and a buy. Or if they're living at home with relatives, they might have a really tight timeline because they want to get out of there. Right? Or if they have a lease, their lease might expire on X day. Right? So that's a great question to ask. What is your current living situation? Kelly, what would be another question you would ask?
Would where they're getting their financing from be something you ask them?
It's a little delayed on my end, maybe but where they're getting their down payment from, is that what you're saying?
Where they're getting their financing from is what you.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's the same thing as what your budget is. Have you talked to any lenders? Right. And when I ask them that question, have you talked to any lenders? And if they say yes, awesome. Can you send me your pre-approval? Here's my email address. If they say no, I say, fantastic. I have a list of 3 to 5 lenders. I'm going to text you all of their numbers. Our meeting is next Monday at 4 o'clock. Do you think you will have time between now and then to start the paperwork so you can have a pre-approval in hand by Monday? And Chris, why would I want them to have their pre-approval in hand, or at least start the process prior to me meeting them face-to-face?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Prior to what?
Why would I want them to have their pre-approval in hand prior to us meeting face-to-face, or at least at the time of us meeting face-to-face?
Well, because when we want it, will facilitate, saving time. But 2, when you get out and start looking at houses, say you show them one house and the first one you show them is the one that they want. If you don't have that pre-qualification letter, then you're not really ready to write the offer, because no seller or any listing agent worth their salt is going to entertain that offer unless they're sure the buyer can afford the house.
Exactly. And what we're doing is we're expediting the process because we understand the market conditions, right? So if I say, hey, Kelly, I need you to have your pre-approval within a week by the time we meet on Monday. on Monday morning or Sunday night, I'm gonna call you up and say, hey, Kelly, I just want to confirm our appointment for tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I didn't get a copy of the pre-approval from your lender. Do you have that yet? If Kelly says, yeah, I have it, here it is, awesome. I know what type of buyer Kelly is, right? She's on the ball, she's ready, she's eager. If I give Kelly a week, and within that week, she has not made one phone call to Phil, to any of the lenders that we use, right? To Phil, to Nick, to Mike, any of them. Well, now I have an idea of what type of buyer Kelly's going to be. Maybe she doesn't really want to buy a house. Maybe she's overwhelmed with the process. So if Kelly says, I haven't done that yet. Kelly, I understand how you feel. Would it be easier if I had Phil call you directly? And she might say, yeah, actually that would work out good. Just my personality, just how I am. Have Phil call me. I'll have Phil call. I'll say, Phil will call you tomorrow at 10 o'clock or whatever time Phil and I discuss. And Phil will be able to do that super quick. So now I'm taking Kelly and I'm holding her hand through that process. If she talks to Phil, Phil gets the paperwork, we still meet at 4 o'clock. If she blows Phil off and says, yeah, whatever, doesn't have any conversation with him or doesn't call him back, well, then I'm going to cancel my appointment with Kelly because she already took a week to get a pre-approval and she blew Phil off, right? So there's nothing we can do. I can't go forward in my steps. I can't go forward in my process without her getting me that pre-approval. And that's just the way that I've been doing it forever. It seems to work, right? So then when we meet face to face Monday at 4 o'clock, and that's when I show them this lovely presentation that I'll do a little screen share on. Boom. Y'all can see it. Just I can't see your faces for some reason. So just say yes if you can.
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So many moons ago, I did a first-time home buyers consultation at a group. There's probably about 30 people there. And this was the presentation that I showed. All right. So this is exactly what we did. And then I took this and I kind of elaborated on it for this class. So when I meet them face to face in the office, I want to review their answers that they gave me at the initial phone call. So Chip comes into the office and say, hey, Chip, you want to be in Shellmont schools or Mohonasen school, somewhere in the Rotterdam area. You're thinking about 300,000. Your pre-approval says 325. You want to have 3-bed, 1-bath, all the amenities that we had listed prior to. It's just you buying the house. And I more or less go over that recap with Chip. At that point, or with Craig or Chip or whoever, at that point, he could say, well, I really want to have this, or I really want to have that. Perfect. We'll talk about that in a minute. So when we're talking, our job is to explain everything to the buyers the same way that I would explain something to my son when he was a kid where he didn't know any better. I'm not talking down to them, but I have to assume that everybody's going to be in the same spot where they've never bought a house before, or they don't do it enough where they understand the process like the back of their hand, like we do. So I say, hey, Craig, one of the things that I do as a buyer agent, which all buyer agents have to do, is my fiduciary responsibilities. Obedience, loyalty, confidentiality, all of that stuff basically means that I am working for you in the capacity of a buyer's agent where I owe all of this to you. My job is to get you to the closing table with the best deal possible. Does that make sense, Craig? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. All right. So, Craig, the importance of having a buyer agent in your own representation, right? Because I have to assume that the second Craig puts on Facebook that he wants to buy a house, every single person is going to interject and give him advice because they bought a house 13 years ago, or because they're a realtor and they want to give them advice. Right. So I explained to them in layman's terms what it's like and the importance of having your own representation. So Kelly, what is number one?
In most cases, it's free to hire a buyer's agent.
And Donato, when would it not be free to hire a buyer agent?
This sound is probably too prong.
Is there, Donato?
Too prong. This one.
Wait, what?
I said, when would it not be free to hire a buyer agent?
I mean, I guess maybe in some cases for a for sale by owner.
Yep. Exactly. And why am I explaining that to them right now?
Oh, because if the seller isn't paying a buyer agent's portion of the commission, then it falls on the buyer.
Perfect. And we talked about this throughout class. It's been an ongoing theme of pre-setting expectations, right? So I will say, Greg, in most cases, it's free to hire a buyer agent. In some cases where there is a for sale by owner and they don't offer a co-bro, typically that buyer agent fee will have to come from you. Is that something you're okay with? He could say, absolutely not a problem at all. Or he could say, no. I said, okay, then what we'll do is we'll figure out a house based on that, right? We'll take it with a grain of salt. At least moving forward, I can explain to him that we already had this conversation about how we get compensated, right? Chip, number 2.
A buyer's agent knows what to look for when viewing houses.
Perfect. And what does that mean to you, Ray?
The agent will know what they're looking for more so than the buyer itself. You know, we'll go in, we know, taking a look at the property, seeing what's there and what the seller has, with documents and stuff like that.
Yep, exactly. You know, when the buyer goes to look at the house, they're going to look at with rose-colored glasses. They're going to look at the backsplash, the bathrooms, the layout, the bedrooms. What we're going to look at is we're going to look at the docs, the property condition disclosure. We're going to look at the taxes to make sure they match up. We're going to make sure that there's no, exemptions on there. If the taxes show that they're 6,500, and make sure that's the actual taxes. Also, when we're looking at the house, I tell all my buyers, you're there to look at the aesthetics. I'm more or less there looking at the things that you wouldn't see, right? I'm going to make sure that, the cabinet doors open the right way and, things like that, or the layout, or even the neighborhood. I typically, whenever I go view a house, if my appointment is at 1 o'clock, I will get there at 12:30 and I'll drive around the neighborhood a little bit. I want to see what the neighborhood looks like. It also adds more value to your buyer when you go there and say, yeah, I looked around the neighborhood. This street looks great, but you go 2 streets up and they're $1 million houses. Or you go 2 streets up and it looks like there's a meth lab on every corner, right? At least you're doing your due diligence for your buyer. You're not just opening a door. A trained monkey can open a door and they can call themselves a realtor. What you want to do is go above and beyond, and you want to differentiate yourself. And that's what will lead to referral business. Ray, number 3.
A buyer's agent understands the local real estate market.
I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. A lot of times when I bring this up and I'm like, you're going to look in Zillow, you're going to look at a realtor. I said, they're not the most accurate. That's not a pure picture of what's going on in the real estate market. Every single school district is going to be different. Shoot, even certain, neighborhoods within a school district is going to have a different market value. My job is to do a market evaluation of every property you want to see, and we'll take it from there. Craig, number 4. I did mute you though, because you had a background noise. Unmute yourself if you want.
Barking dog.
That's all right.
A buyer's agent can help evaluate and secure financing. What loan best suits your buyer's FHA, USDA, conventional?
And when I say secure financing, it's not me doing the financing by any means. It's I can help you to secure a good lender, right? Our job is to help them find the best lender possible. I'm not going to speak ill on any lenders here locally, but we all know that there's some lenders that are better than others. If you have a pre-approval from, Lending Institute A versus B, a lot of times in this competitive market, if you have lender A, it'll help you get that, the property, because it's a stronger pre-approval, right? And then explain to them FHA, USDA, conventional, because they're already going to have their pre-approval in hand, right? So I'm going to ask them, hey, look, it looks like you have an FHA loan with a 6% seller concession. Do you understand what that means? And does everybody here, and just say yes, because I can't see your faces, Does everybody know what seller concession is and how that works?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you don't, say no. And I won't call you out on it.
Refresh.
Perfect. So using layman's terms, basic math, let's say that there is $10,000 in closing costs, right? $10,000 cash in hand at closing out of your pocket to pay the closing costs. Let's say you're buying $100,000 house. All right. If you use 6% seller concession, and what I always explain to buyers is that by in no way is the seller paying for your closing costs. Somewhere back in the day, sellers would help finance and pay closing costs. A lot of times mom and dad will ask that question, you know, if my son buys this house, are the sellers going to pay his closing costs? The answer is no, especially in this market. So $10,000 out of pocket for closing costs, you're buying the house for $100,000. If you have 6% seller concession, you are ultimately going to finance $106,000. $100,000 goes to the seller. The $6,000 goes towards your closing cost. So instead of you bringing $10,000 to the closing table, you're going to bring $4,000, right? $10,000 minus $6,000 is $4,000. You're financing $6,000 worth of your closing costs for 6%. Does that make sense? Again, I can't
Yes.
see it, so perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. Number 5. Let's go with Kelly again.
A buyer's agent will coordinate showings.
Yeah. And that's, you know, what we do. So what we have to do and the behind the scenes, because a lot of times buyers will say, hey, can we go see this house right now? So this is a point where I stop and I say, you know, my job is to help coordinate the showings. Typically in this market, showings will require 24-hour notice. There are a lot more restrictions on the homes due to COVID and everything like that. So if you do see a house on Monday, I will try my best to get you in there Monday night, but typically it's 24 to 48 hours. I am managing their expectations right from the beginning that they can't text me at 3 o'clock to see a house at 3:30. A, my schedule won't allow that. And B, a lot of times the sellers won't allow that either. Number 6, let's go Ray.
The buyer's agent will know how to write real estate contracts, which will cover soon.
I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, you know, but we write the real estate contract. During this number 6, I explained to them that a lot of the contracts are boilerplate. Once we write the contract, it'll go off to the attorneys. The attorneys will review. They will take out some language. They will add in other language. It's the attorney approval process, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Chris Donato, number 7.
Buyer's agent will have access to experienced professionals needed during a transaction.
And what are some of the experienced professionals?
Home inspectors, attorneys, lenders, in some cases, even title companies.
Yep, perfect. You know, Craig, my job is to give you the experienced professionals. I do understand that you said that your aunt is an attorney. She's not a real estate attorney, though. She is a litigator. She's a divorce attorney. She's a XYZ attorney, right? When you go and have surgery on your knee, you want to make sure that you have somebody who specializes in knees and not, you know, somebody who specializes in the brain, right? Just because they're a doctor doesn't mean that they're, you know, specialized in your field. Shoot, my brother's a doctor. Just because he went to school long enough doesn't mean he can operate on me. Same thing with attorneys. You know, you want to make sure that you have a real estate attorney and you want to make sure you have a licensed home inspector. I understand that your Uncle Bob has built a few houses and flipped 2 houses once in his life. That doesn't qualify him for being a home inspector. Also, during the home inspection process, we are looking for major material defects. We're not looking for things for code. Code is not part of the home inspection process. All right, and I'm just getting ahead of everything because I know that that question is going to come up. Let's go, Chip, number 8.
A buyer's agent will be your negotiator, which is one of, Ryan, I assume your favorite things to do since it says my in there.
Yep. So again, I'm going to give everybody this this PDF. Feel free to omit, take out what you like. This for me is talking points because again, I'm going over this. This is on the big TV in my office, and I'm explaining to them everything that I'm explaining to you guys. You know, one of my favorite things to do is to negotiate. Now, I will be completely honest with you. In this crazy seller's market, you might be one of 20 offers. So we're not going to negotiate in the terms you might think, right? We're not going to negotiate a $200,000 house down to a $170,000 house. What we're going to negotiate is the terms of the contract to best suit the seller's needs to have you get that house. It might even mean that you have to pay over asking price for the house. It is what it is in this market. Are you prepared to do that? Yeah, absolutely, not a problem, right? So we're having these conversations and we're presetting the expectations.
Right.
What was that, Ray?
I said, right.
All right. Ray, number 9.
A buyer's agent will keep the transaction on schedule.
Right. So even the seller's agent, you know, all the agents are there to keep it on schedule. The attorneys, if you have a good attorney, Ray just had to deal with this today. They added a 10-day extension onto his inspections. You know, keep in mind, whatever client you're working with, buyer or seller, that extensions are par for the course, especially in this time period. You know, you are going to get a 10-day extension on this. You're going to get a 3-day extension on that. It doesn't mean anything other than they just haven't fulfilled their obligation within the time period. Right now, some home inspectors are 15 to 20 days out. If you write on the initial contract that you're going to do the inspections by X day and it's getting close to that day and the inspectors are, you know, delayed or pushed back, the attorneys are just going to write a quick little letter, hey, we're going to extend this to this day. Number 10, Kelly.
A buyer's agent can be your emotional filter. I often call myself a psychologist.
You will 100% of the time be the psychologist. You're going to talk people off the ledge. I let them know right from the beginning that this is going to be a fun process, but because there's so many unknowns for you that, you know, you can call me at any time. If something bothers you, if you have a question, you know, I'm going to give you the truth from what I see. And if I don't understand it, or if I don't know it, then we're going to talk to the attorney. You know, you're going to have questions with the home inspection, and the seller is going to have questions. So throughout this whole entire process, I will be your emotional filter. I will be the one that you can count on. I will be essentially the quarterback of the whole entire transaction, where if the attorney writes an email and you don't fully understand that email, you ask me, hey, Ryan, what does this mean? All right. So once we get done with that, we go through the actual process. And I broke this down to 10 steps. There, you could elaborate and make this 30 steps if you want. But, you know, when explaining this to folks, I want to make it as easy and simple as possible. 10 just seemed like a good number. Also, if you look at the handout that I gave you, the buying process simplified, I made it 17 steps, just so you have more to add or omit if you want to. You know, on the handout I gave you, it's, you know, speak with a local mortgage lender. We did that prior to this. All right. So step 1, find a realtor that you can trust and will always have your interest in mind. All right. Super simple. When they're in this room with me, I make a joke and I say, I'm a great choice. I'm glad that you're meeting me here today. They often laugh. If they don't laugh, then they just walk out and they don't like me. Step 2, get pre-approved by a local trusted lender. Your realtor will be able to point you in the right direction, right? We're already there. You know, right now we are at step 3, set up an initial meeting, consultation with your realtor to search the MLS database for active homes you want to view. View as many homes as it takes and you'll find the ones you love. Step 4, what is that, Kelly?
Make the sellers an offer. Earnest money deposit, usually 1% of sales price.
Okay. And I highlighted things that are out-of-pocket expenses. And I started doing this about 5 years ago or so, maybe even longer, because people don't understand. They think that their down payment or they think their closing cost is all they have to pay. They don't understand that there's out-of-pocket expenses. Earnest money deposit is a big one, right? So when I'm having this consultation with them, I say, hey, listen, you know, Craig, you're looking at a $350,000 home. In this market, it's usually 1%. But if we want our offer to stand out, I would put $5,000 down, right? Joanne White talked about that in writing the winning offer, where one of the ways you could negotiate is to have a higher earnest money. If I have this conversation with Craig and I'm like, do you have $5,000 to tie up? And he says, no, I have no money. What are you talking about? I don't have any money for a down payment. Well, now we have to restructure everything. I have to call his lender to see if his lender explained to him what the out-of-pockets were or what the closing costs were. On the flip side, Craig might say, yeah, that's not a problem at all. I already anticipated that. I talked to Phil. He's awesome. He told me about earnest money. $5,000 was not going to be an issue at all. Perfect. We move on to the next step. And all the while, when I'm meeting with them in my office, I'm just explaining them one step at a time, and I'm making sure they understand that. At the end of every single one, I always ask the follow-up question, does that make sense? Do you have any additional questions? What are your thoughts on that? Because I want to be able to gauge them. If they're staring at me like a deer in headlights, I know something went over their head, or I know something's bothering them. And you're going to have to be able to read the room and talk to them in that way. If all of a sudden I'm talking to Kelly and she's staring at me blindly, I'm like, Kelly, is that something that's going to be okay? Oh, yeah, it's fine. I was just thinking something else. No worries. The 5% or the 5,000 is not an issue. Number 5, let's go with Chip.
Once the contract is signed by all parties, it gets sent to the lender and your attorney for attorney approval, which is a 3-day period.
Yeah. So again, in this crazy market, I explained to them that your contract is not a full-fledged contract until the attorneys sign off on that. It is a 3-day period. Right now, you have an offer that has been accepted, right? And I say, sometimes throughout this 3-day period, the seller could still show the property. If they get a higher offer, they can kick your offer out and accept the other one, no questions asked. All right. Again, I just want to preset their expectations that it could happen. In my real estate career, it's happened 3 times, 1 8 years ago, and twice in the last 12 months because of this crazy market. It just is what it is. It stinks when you're on the buy side. It's also hard when you're on the sale side and you have to break that news to somebody else. Like, hey, I know we accepted your offer, but we just got a higher one yesterday. So the attorneys are going to do that. I tell them, be prepared. You're going to have a lot of attorney lingo in an email. If you have questions about it, let me know. They're going to omit things. They're going to add literature. They're going to add text. They're going to add this. Like I said, if it doesn't make any sense to you, ask me or call the attorney directly. All right. Number 6, Craig.
Schedule your home inspection with the realtor. I can't read the whole thing because it's let's see if I can move mine.
Oh, you have the faces over it.
Yeah.
I had to move mine over too.
Schedule your home inspection. Your realtor will be able to refer you to a great home inspector. Out of pocket spends $350 to $500.
I pause there. That seems to be low nowadays. It seems that home inspectors have increased their prices. And this is just for the structural home inspection. And I often pause here and I tell them, the structural might be $300, $350, $500. Call them and ask. But because the house you're looking at, Craig, has a well and it has a septic, those are going to be additional out-of-pocket expenses because you're going to have additional inspections on those. So I would prepare $1,000 to $1,500 total for all the inspections. Now, when you're buying a house up front, that might seem like a lot of money, but it's a drop in a bucket to catch a septic issue, which could ultimately cost you $30,000, right? So the septic inspection could be $250. I would spend $250 all day in order to save $30,000. These are all out-of-pocket expenses. The home inspector gets paid the day of the inspection. If the house isn't closed, if there are major issues with the house, the seller will not reimburse you for the expenses of the home inspection. It is your job, it is your due diligence to inspect their house. Now, if they're hiding a major material defect, if they know that there's septic issues and they didn't disclose that, then we can cross that bridge. But a lot of times when you uncover something, it's the first time the seller is seeing that as well because they haven't done a home inspection in their property in 15 years since they last bought it. Depending on the results of the home inspection, there could be several steps here to get estimates. Keep in mind, we're looking for major material defects over $1,500. Small cumulative items don't count. All right. Craig, why would I explain to them that we're looking for, major material defects?
Because if it's $1,500 or more, they can get out of the contract.
Exactly. And why would I explain to them that, it has to be major defects and not small cumulative ones?
So that they can't just walk in and be like, oh, I don't want it.
Exactly. Right. We want to make sure that they understand that every house is going to have wear and tear. What am I doing? I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it again. We are pre-setting the expectations of the buyer. Craig, we're looking for some major things that are wrong with the house. Yes, if it has mold. Yes, if it has radon. Yes, if it's leaking on the roof. Those are all considered major defects. If a little piece of baseboard is hanging off, if there's, nail holes where, the person put a poster up and they didn't use tacks, and for some reason they used nails to put the posters on, those really don't count. It's normal wear and tear. I just don't want you to go into a house and expect that the seller is going to make it perfect and do a fresh coat of paint on every single wall because you don't like the paint color, right? I want to make sure that my buyer is on the same page the whole time with me. That way, when we do go to negotiate, we negotiate for the bigger things and we kind of leave the little things, where they are. Radon has been one that's been coming up a lot. Typically, a radon mitigation system will be paid for by the sellers anyway because they have to do it because it's a major defect. So again, throughout that process, Craig, now let's go Chip. Chip, do you go to the home inspection or would you go to the home inspection with your buyer?
Yeah, sure. Or no, or yes.
Well, what do you think? You have to pick one.
I think yes, you could go.
Perfect. Great answer. And Chris, if you're still there, I don't know if no, he had to hop off. Ray, why would Chip go to the home inspection with his buyer?
Make sure everything is, the inspector's also not adding stuff on as well too, but make sure everything checks out okay. He wants to be more informative to your buyer.
Plus, you're the steward of the house, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, you as the realtor are responsible of the house because you've got two other people that aren't licensed to be in the house,
Exactly.
I guess.
In my situation, my buyer or the buyer's agent is actually out of town till whenever, so I'm probably going to be taking it over.
And that's even better. Wow, that's fantastic. And Craig, if you were the listing agent, would you go to the home inspection?
You could. You would stay out of the way.
And I
mean, mine helped me out this past week because I had to leave. And she said, she offered to come in and, stand on the side and be there. Perfect.
I will go to, and this is what I explained to my buyers. I will go to the home inspection. I will be there the whole entire time. The home inspector that I'm going to refer you, I refer 3 or 4. They're all fantastic, but they only have 2 eyes. Craig, if I'm there and I notice something that he might not notice because he's looking at everything, I'll point it out to him. Same way you, hey, what is this over here? Shouldn't this be a GFCI or shouldn't this be this or shouldn't this be that? The home inspection is also a time for you to get a snapshot of the inner workings of the house. Where does your exhaust go out for, your washer and dryer? Is your exhaust high enough where if it snows, it's not going to be covered up, right? He's going to give you a bunch of things, or she's going to give you a bunch of things that is going to be a honey-do list. Hey, listen, this is fine the way it is, but to make it a little better, add this, this, and this. So you're going to have 2 different lists. You're going to have your major list, right? If they're already majors. And then you're also going to have your, what I call the honey-do list. You're going to have the things that you're just going to want to monitor over time. Hey, listen, it looks like the hot water heater is 6 years old. Average lifespan on these are 10. Just take a look. It looks like the bottom is a little corroded. Just keep your eyes and ears out for it. The day of the final walkthrough, make sure you take a look at that and make sure it's not leaking, right? Now, when I am working with a seller, I 100% of the time will go to the home inspection. I don't go the whole entire time. I tell the buyer agent, listen, I'm going to show up to the home inspection. I'm going to be in my car. I only want to be there for the last half hour when you all do a recap, because if there are things that you want me to look at, I feel it's in my best interest, in your best interest, in the buyer's best interest, and also in my seller's best interest if you point that out to me right then and there. Right. And this has helped me save deals 1,000 times over, because I'm there. The home inspector's like, hey, Ryan, come over here, take a look at this. I am able to read the room and gauge the buyer based on the way that they look, if this is something that's huge for them. Hey, Ryan, look, it looks like the flashing on the chimney is loose. It looks like there's a little bit of leaking. Not a big deal. My seller is actually a roofer. He'll go up there tomorrow and he'll fix that, right? I'm going to try to make it as minimal as possible. Now, if the whole entire roof is coming off and there's major issues, obviously we talk to our clients. But the point being, if I'm there and I can gauge the home inspector and I can gauge the buyer and I can have a little bit of conversation, it's so much easier to do it that way than for me to get a report 6 days later that's literally written in black and white text or red text that this is a major issue. I have nothing to base it off. I'm going off of pictures, right? And it's also 6 days later. I always like to get ahead of it right from the jump. So I strongly encourage you on all of your listings to go to the home inspection, let the buyer agent know you're going to be there at the end. You're going to hang out in your car. When you're all good and ready, shoot me a text. I'll come in. Just point out anything you want me to see. All right. Anybody have any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. All right. Number 7, the bank will set up a home appraisal, and it's an out-of-pocket expense, about $300 to $500. The appraisal will happen. You don't have to be there. If the margins are tight and you want to let the appraiser in, if the listing agent can't, whatever the case is, or provide comps, by all means do that. I've gone to a few, others I haven't, just depending on the purchase price and things like that. Number 8, title search is conducted by the attorneys, depending on the county. Right, title is just a transfer. They might ask what title is, and you're just going to say, we just want to make sure that there's no liens, encumbrances. We want to make sure that you're having a clear ownership of that property from person A selling it to you buying it. And we want to make sure that there's no like back taxes and things like that. Barring that there are no issues with the inspection, appraisal, title, or lending, the bank will issue a clear to close. Now, once you get the clear to close, or even like right around the same time they won't issue it, you have to get homeowners insurance. All right, it's part of the upfront cost. You're going to pay your homeowners insurance moving forward to insure the house. That way, when you pay your escrow for the following year, you're paying the advanced year. And number 10, closing time, and refer to all your friends. All right, this is the most basic of 10 steps. And this, we just had this conversation. It took us an hour to 45 minutes to go through all this. And this is without any sidebar conversation from your, prospective buyer, right? But it's a lot of information. I always encourage them to have a piece of paper and a pen. They can write it down. I can also email this to them. I tell them that it's not the gospel. It's just a brief overview of the things to expect. There could be, things coming out left and right. Then I show them this. Has everybody seen one of these? Just say yes if you have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. What with such great enthusiasm, right?
Yes.
Perfect. There you go. So part of my job, part of our job as realtors is to educate our buyer. I want to make sure that my buyer is so educated that they know what they're looking for. So when I was doing my presentation and when I developed this, the original sale price, then the list price. So Ray, it originally was listed at 164.9. Now it's down to 154.9. What does that mean to you?
It's either been on the market for too long or something came about and not enough offers, or
And you have that conversation with your buyer. This This is the house that fit on the market, and we'll explain days on market in a second, but they already dropped the price $10,000. Now that could mean one of two things. Well, it could mean one of many things. It could mean that they're willing to negotiate, could mean that they started high, hoping they would get it high, and they've come to their senses and realized that. It could mean that they want a quick sale now, or it could mean that they've already lowered it 10,000. So for them to come down even lower is going to be difficult right now. We won't know until we see it, until we price the house. Craig, number 2, can you read that? Are you there, Craig?
Yep. IB's current list price or
Right.
B. Oh,
2.
96.30.
Yep. Average price per square foot. When you're pricing a house, when you're marketing a house, when you're looking at a CMA for a house, this is your snapshot. And this is actually something new within the last two years, where they put average price per square foot, or they put price per square foot on the MLS sheet. Before, I would have just had to do the quick math, 154.9 divided by 1632, which is right here, to find the price per square foot. And it lends you a lot more credibility when you're showing up to a house and you say, yeah, this house is about $98 a square foot. I did a little research and I've noticed the neighborhood sells anywhere from 95 to 110 per square. So this is on the lower end of things, right? I'm just adding more value to my day. I'm adding more value to my client, that I understand the local market. Again, I could have taken the other approach and opened the door. They could say, hey, is it priced well? Yeah, I think so. It looks like it's in line, right? I have no idea, right? Do a little bit more research, do a little bit more digging, get that price per square foot, and then also look at the area. So all I would have to do to find that is go right here, see where it says 451. Just go to 451 in the sub area, search for bungalows and see what houses have sold. Go to the price per square foot, use the toolkit CMA stuff and find out the average price per square and see if this house is priced where it should be or if it's higher or lower. All right. We want to look at the above square footage. I always have them look here. All right. This is where it's going to show if it's public sewer, public water, if they want to have central air, if they don't want to have central air. All the mechanicals of the house are going to be found in this section. And the reason why I show them this sheet is because when I go over listings with them, I want them to be aware of what they're looking at. Because for us, we can read this and it's second nature. For, excuse me, for a buyer, seeing it for the first time in my office on a big TV, they get lost. They don't have no idea what to look for. They're looking over here to the right. They're looking over here to the left. They're wondering why this section is blank. They have no idea. Once we go down here, we go for the taxes. And I explain to them that everything on this MLS sheet is data entry. I will trust, but I will verify the numbers. The A means it's actual. E means it's estimated, right? So when we're looking at everything, if we see taxes and it says 4,600 in taxes and it's actual, I'll say, Craig, it looks to be the actual taxes, but what I will do is I will confirm that prior to our showing. All right, we can just look them up online. DOM, Chip, what do you think DOM means?
Days on market.
Chip, man, you're a genius. You're about to get your real estate license and crush this world. Or you probably just looked over here to the right, but regardless, I have faith in you, Chip. Days on market. Ray, if it's only been one day in the market and listed at 200,000, what do you think? You think you can go in at 150?
200,000 and go in at 150? No
Yeah.
way. One day on the market? I'll
Now,
laugh at you.
what if it's on the market for 370 days and listed at 200,000? You think you can negotiate a little bit?
Yeah, I'd probably do 100.
Perfect. Well, we don't know about 100, but yes. I explain that to our clients because the longer the days on the market typically means that the sellers are getting frustrated or they don't know, or, because we don't know what the seller's mindset is, it could mean that they're super stubborn and they're just going to wait for the perfect offer and it could expire. But at least I can have that conversation with my buyer and say, hey, listen, one day in the market, $200,000 in this current condition, we might have to go above asking. Are you okay with that? And then they can say, no, I'll never pay above asking. I always ask people this question. If they say they'll never pay above asking, Craig, you said that you would never pay above asking. What if this house was listed at 225? Would you be okay paying 210? Well, yeah. Okay. So if it's listed at 200, you're not okay with paying 210? No. So you have to get to the root. And for some people, it's just principle. It's just, I'll never pay over asking. Well, in this market, you might have to, and slowly but surely they'll start seeing it, right? And when you break it down to them, if it was listed at 225 and you would pay 210, you feel like you're getting a deal. Well, shoot, they could have easily underpriced this house on purpose just to pad their stats to say that they sold it for more, or to create a buzz and get multiple offers. There's 3 different pricing strategies. There is at full market value, there's above it, or there's below it. Everyone has their pros and cons. If you list a little bit under fair market value, you're going to create a buzz, and you might get enough offers where you increase that number to above what you thought it would be. Gina and I listed a house in Waynesburg at like 460. We ended up getting an offer for $514,000. Two doctors were just basically going back and forth, and they wanted the house. And we basically said, who wants it more? But they kept on increasing their numbers until we finally had to say final invest by this day, and it got up to 514,000. So, explaining market conditions to your buyer is going to be so incredibly important. We all went over this with George. All right, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but during this time, I'm going to explain some of the key parts of the contract. I explained that these are items included in the sale. It doesn't mean that if there is not a security system that they're going to install one. It just means that if there is a security system, it'll be included in the sale unless they tell you otherwise. All right, storm doors and screens and windows. If they're there, you're going to get them. If there's no windows on the back porch, they're not installing windows. I actually had a client ask me once, where was it? It was something with shrubs right here, or no, blinds. They're like, are they putting blinds in the house? No, there are no blinds there. So I then explained to them right here, this is the purchase price. This is where we talk about, all the stuff with seller concessions and right here, right there. All right. Now over here, I explained to them transfer of title. And I explained to them that, this is an estimated date. It's like a pregnancy due date. My son was due on X day. He wasn't born that day. He was born 5 days later. The same way with your house, right? You're going to be targeted to close December 30th. Don't be surprised if you close January 14th. It is what it is. It's an estimated date, and that's what we want to do. Time period of the offer, I explained to them it's usually 24 hours for the time period of offer. These are all the inspections that we're going to do. If it does have a septic or a well, we'll check that. If it doesn't, we just cross it off.
Chris was going to say something.
Yeah, Chris.
Oh, it's all good. Can you go back up to transfer of title?
Sure can.
You'll notice on here in this line, right where the blank, fill in the blank is, it says seller or the closing will be on or before. So if you have a really analytical personality or somebody that basically reads everything line by line and tries to interpret things in the literal sense of the term, just make sure they're aware that New York State, and you can ask George Slingerland this question too, New York State recognizes this paragraph as a target date, as Ryan explained. The fact that it says on or before does not mean that it will close on or before, and the seller nor the buyer can really force anyone to close on or before that date.
Yep.
Just wanted to add that in.
It's one of those things. It's everybody is shooting for closing on around that day. All right. If it's delayed because of title, if it's delayed because of the appraisal, if it's delayed because of inspection, if it's delayed because of attorney approval, right? These are all things that push back that date. There are things where if you do have to get out of an apartment, you want to make sure that you have this way before that, because not to get too much into the weeds, there's something called time is of the essence. So if I know that Craig has to be out of his apartment by January 1st, I'll put a target date 15 days or 20 days prior to then. That way, that's the date we're shooting for. If we don't close on that date, our attorney can issue time is of the essence a few days afterwards. All right, so talk to your attorney about that. If the timeline is really tight with your buyers, have that conversation with your attorney prior to and say, hey, during attorney approval, can we change this? Can we manipulate it? Also, talking to the seller, talk to the seller's agent, say, hey, listen, we do have to be out by this day. Do your people have to sell and buy? What's the situation with your folks? They could say, hey, the house is vacant, we're fine, we can close anytime. Awesome. It just gives you peace of mind, and it also lets your clients know that you have done your due diligence because you listen to their concerns. All right, so great point on that, Chris. Go down, these are just the addenda, and then the signature spot. All right, I explained to them the disclosures, all that fun stuff. Again, I just want to have my folks understand what they're going to be signing, and it's always easier if I do that prior to versus on the hood of the car. Property condition disclosure, I pause here for a second, and I explain to them that this is one of my most hated forms in all of the MLS. This is probably number 2. Number 1 is the disclosure for this disclosure, because New York State loves disclosures. I explain to them, listen, this is the seller's statement of the property condition. If they note there are major material defects, they have to write yes. In 9 out of 10 cases, they're going to write no or unknown. This is cool to find out the age of the roof, at least if they have an idea, but they could put approximately 10 years old. Well, what is approximately? Could it be 10? Could it be 5? Could it be 15? Who knows? How long have they owned the property? I could find that out in taxes. I said this is cool, but what you're going to want to do is make sure you have a home inspection. The home inspection will trump everything on here. This is them just writing yes, no, or unknown, getting a quick, brief snapshot of the property. Has anybody had any issues with this or gone through this yet? I know that, Craig, you had your deal and you had to fill this out, correct?
So did I.
Is he there?
Yes, I did.
Gotcha. So when your client was filling this out, I'm sure they asked a million questions, and it also says up here that we're not, there to inform them or to give them, the answers per se. Answer all the questions based on your actual knowledge attached, blah, 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 blah. Like I said, even when my sellers fill this out, I just tell them, listen, if you know something's a major defect, then put yes. If you don't know, then write no or unknown. It's going to be the buyer's due diligence to have their home inspection. All right, and then I just follow up and I say buying a house can be a stressful process. Make sure you have the right real estate professional to bring it through the finish line. So once I go through all of this, all right, what I do next, and again, what was my ultimate goal? My ultimate goal from the initial phone call was to have them come to the office, correct? What is my ultimate goal once they're in the office? What is this next step in that process? What do you
Get 'em
think,
ready.
Ray?
Get them ready. Get everything.
Them
Get
ready?
the whole.
Okay. So
kit
I
and
just
caboodle, all the
I just
cards on
got
the
them
table.
ready. Craig, what is their next step?
Get them to sign.
My man,
Oh, yeah.
get them to sign. Right. So what I do, and this is, Ryan Clark 101 here. I'm going to trademark this. I'm sure somebody's done it 1,000 times over. So I'll do a little screen share. Boom. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. Let's go here. All right. Everybody can see my screen. Just say yes if you can.
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
So go all active. We get rid of the under contract. Why would I get rid of active under contract, Chip?
Because we don't want gonna look at those houses. I forget the exact reason why, but I know that they're bad.
Yeah. So basically, they already have another offer and it's backup offers, which nobody wants to do. And let's just say Craig is pre-approved at 350. You know, I'll say, hey, Craig, you're pre-approved at 350. How low would you want to go? You know, and he's like, you know, let's look between 275 and 350. Perfect. And he's like, you know, I want to be in Shelmont schools. And I'll say, hey, remember we talked about that? You know, are you okay with Shelmont Mahonison? He's like, yeah, sure. Shelmont Mahonison and Gilbert. And I keep on having him look up here. And I say, Craig, if we were just looking in Shelmont, there's only 3 houses right now for sale between 275 and 350. The importance of expanding our search is we have more search criteria, right? And we already went over how to add a contact into the MLS, how to have them have an automatic search and all that stuff. So what I'm doing right now with Craig in my office, I'm saying, Craig, these are the homes that are currently under contract. I am going to set you up on an automatic search that you're going to be able to get all of these houses that fit your criteria. And we're going to say Guilderland, and we're going to say Mohan just for fun. And there's 12 houses for sale. And I'll say, Craig, do you want the houses to go in ascending or descending order? And he says, whatever. And we say, okay, we're going to start at 275. And we're going to look. So as we're doing this on the big screen, I'll say, Craig, do you like this house? And your answer is?
No.
All right, let's go on to the next one. And we're doing a little role play. For real, pretend that you're my client right now. All right. All right, Craig, do you like this house?
It's a possibility.
All right, let's take a look at some photos. All right, and we're looking. All right. And Craig, listen, at any time you can tell me to stop looking at the photos and you can tell me to go on to the next one. Or if this is something you really like, you know, let me know.
Yeah, I like that one. So let's look at that one.
All right, perfect. So what I do is I check this box right here. All right. Now, Craig, I'm going to quiz you a little bit because I know that, you know, when I went through my presentation earlier, I asked you some of these questions. What is the list price on this house?
Oh, the list price is $279.9.
And what is the average price or what is the price per square foot right now on this property?
$134.05.
Perfect. How long has it been on the market?
46
Perfect.
days on the market.
Awesome. Craig, you passed with flying colors. I'm very proud. Means that, you know, when I teach something, you're paying attention. All right. Now, what do you think of this one, Craig? 2 Norwood Street.
That looks cute.
Perfect. And we say, okay, let's go to the next one. I check it off the box. We go here. All right, and let's say Lisa Drive, you don't like. And let's say Crumbkill, you do like. 2 pictures of the house are not included. Pictures to come. Let's take a look at this one. This one looks haunted, but
Oh my goodness.
definitely haunted.
Wicked cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to buy this house. Anybody want to go halvesies with me?
Yeah, right.
32 days on the market. Let it come down a bit.
I know this is being recorded, and if you're friends with this realtor, please, you know, show him this recording for a teachable moment. Please don't ever be this guy.
Oh,
You know, don't have your picture in the reflection of the mirror while taking a bathroom photo, okay?
Yeah, that is not me.
With your
No.
phone nonetheless.
Just, you know, if we're listing a house for $300,000, I think we can all agree that getting a professional photographer is part of our duties as a realtor to, you know, make our home stand out versus, you know, that photo. I mean,
bathroom selfies. Yeah, man.
this, you know what I mean? Like, is this really needed? I don't know. Just, you know, yeah. Just go a little bit above and beyond of what the norm was. So let's say we don't like that house. Let's say you like this one on Campbell. All right. And I'm just gonna arbitrarily click houses just for argument's sake, so I can get you out of here.
Are you finding people are using drones for pictures a lot? Is
So-
that kind of the new thing?
Well, it depends. So, you know, Gina and I just listed 4 or 5 houses in Dwaynesburg on 4 acres overlooking ponds and everything like that. We absolutely did drones, 100%, because it shows the scope of the land. If you live in a cookie cutter neighborhood where you're surrounded by other houses, the drone is going to show that. So why have that, right? We listed a house and the yard was so incredibly trashed. It was all dirt. So we made the executive decision to not shoot any drones because I didn't want to showcase how poor the yard was, right? So I would say it's case by case. I would say if the shoe fits, wear it. If you have a nice property, which it showcases the property and everything, absolutely use a drone. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So let's say these are the houses you wanted to see. After I check them all, I go over here to the right and I just click checked. All right. And now I have 6 houses. I'm going to schedule a showing. And I'm going to say, you know, Craig, what day are you available? Let me go back over here for a second. Let's get out of that. And I add to showing cart. All right. I always add to showing cart. The difference between adding to showing cart and a single showing is this is going to put all of Craig's showings into one folder for me. I can go back and I can search. I can just type in Craig's name or whatever description I give him, and I can look at my calendar so I can see how many houses I've shown him. All right. So it's, let's say Craig's like, hey, I'm free Thursday. Awesome. All right. And let's go Craig. That's good here. Let's go Craig. All right. So boom, we're here. And let's say he wanted to see the other house. We go here to schedule showing. And we add a showing cart, and there he is. Boom. And I'm going to kind of jump through this quick. Schedule showing, same thing. Add a showing cart. Craig, next. And see how it's making the map and everything all there at the bottom. And notice how we're all over the place, like 30 minutes away, 14 minutes away. You know, we're literally going 1, 2, 3. We're backtracking. That seems like a pain in the butt. If there's only a way to make it like a smart route, that would be awesome. Let's take a look here. Schedule showing. Craig. All right, let's just say we have 5. But if you look here, our showings are literally all over the place. All right, we went from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 over here. If I wanted to do a smart route, where do you think I would go, Ray?
Start from 1, then make 3, 2, and then do 3, 4, and 5.
Oh, so I would have to like go over here and do all that?
What?
Like,
on this.
yeah.
It's smart room.
Huh. If I wanted to do a smart route, where would I go?
Oh yeah, there's a smart route button down
Oh,
there.
no kidding.
Oh hey, hello.
It's funny. I make a joke about this, but it's funny because like you don't realize that there are these tools out there. I actually just talked to an agent in our office the other day. And he's like, Ryan, how come whenever I do the one time, like he kept on doing the single showing versus the showing cart. And he's like, how do I make it so it goes in order without having to change the numbers? And I just said, hey, I think smart route would work. So if we're here, now it puts everything in order for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Over here too, it shows the distance between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, and 4 and 5. So when I pick my times, I go here 1:15 to 2:30, right? And we do buyer's agent and I press save. All right. If I know that these are 15 minutes apart, I can go here. Aha. Now look, we have a little bit of an issue. They don't allow showings until 5 o'clock. All right. So we're going to put that one to the side, and that's right in the middle. So we're going to say, you know what? Let's put that one to the side. Maybe we could see that one a different day because you can't do anything past 5 o'clock. So we click remove. We take that off of the list. We go here and we say 1:45 to 2:30. It's okay for you to overlap your showings. All right. Now, if we know that these houses are half hour away, 1:15 to 2:30, you know, we could extend this one, maybe let's go 2 o'clock to 2:45. That way we just know, even if we're here for a half hour, we know that we're going to be in this house anytime between them. These two houses are 6 minutes apart. So let's just say 2:30 to 3:30. And I'm scheduling this and I'm getting Craig all excited. He's going to go see these houses. We'll say 3 to 4:45. Boom. And I say, all right, looks like we're all set up to see these houses. I'm going to put the request in. Craig, did you enjoy your time today with me?
Yes, I did.
Do you feel like you learned a lot today?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any additional questions for me, Craig?
Not at this time.
All right. So in the eyes of New York State, in order for me to show you a property, we have to disclose what our agency affiliation is. I would love to work in the capacity as your buyer agent. Would you care to do the same?
Yes.
Awesome. Here's a New York State agency disclosure form. Please sign. I explain the form. Boom. He signs. We're ready to rock and roll. You can use any of the verbiage that Karen used, any of the stuff that Joanne has used. Again, my point being is it's not necessarily what I say about the buyer agency at that point, because we've already learned it. I kind of went over like a quick thing. My point was that I get them to the point of we're going to see a house Thursday at 4 o'clock, but we have to sign these forms prior to. And I will tell you with 100% accuracy that they have signed these forms every single time. Not once has anybody ever said, you know what? Yeah, it hasn't worked out. I didn't get enough information in our last hour and a half. A lot of times what they say is, wow, I learned so much. I didn't know all this existed. Now, could you imagine trying to do what we just did in the last hour and a half on the hood of somebody's car? It is a recipe for disaster when you're going through inspections and you say, hey, Craig, that's not a major material defect. That's just a small minor thing. I don't care. I still want money for it. They knew damn well there was a hole in the wall right there where they put a tack in, and I want them to patch up the whole entire wall because there's tack holes everywhere from when, you know, the little 8-year-old girl put dinosaur posters up, right? Versus, hey, Craig, remember when we had our initial buyer consultation and I said that we're looking for major material defects, not small minor things, not small wear and tear in a house, right? Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, cool, let's move on. It just lends you more credibility down the line. Or when you're going to say, hey, let's put the offer in. Craig, I need that $5,000 earnest money check. What do you mean? What do you mean five? I don't have $5,000. I was borrowing the money from my mom for a down payment. I don't have any money. Wait, what? Right? So we're pre-setting the expectations to make for a smoother transaction. Right? If we take this hour and a half now, it will give you so much more free time down the line versus, you know, trying to play catch up down the line with everything else. So that, my friends, is the initial buyer consultation. That's what I do. This is the same exact approach that I use every time I meet a new buyer, right? Every time somebody calls me up and says, hey, my friend Joe bought a house from you. I would love to do the same. Awesome. I ask them the questions on the phone, have them come into the office. I use the same exact slideshow. I use the same exact method, and then I have them sign the disclosures right then and there. If we look on, you know, the buying process simplified, the 17-step process, number 17, leave your realtor a gleaming review. I don't know who created this because there's no way I would ever use the word gleaming. So maybe one day I was in my feels reading Robert Frost, and I thought that I wanted to use a reading or gleaming, but remember what we talked about earlier, right? What we want to do is we want to create such a great experience, or at least help them out so much, where we're not just an order taker, where we create a relationship with our buyer or seller. I want them to give me reviews, and I want them to refer business back to me on the back end. All right. Does anybody have any questions about this process?
So when you're scheduling the showing through the MLS,
Mhm.
do you not have like any contact with the listing agent?
Yeah, so what happens is these showing requests will go to the listing agent. And then between either the listing agent or their seller is where they either accept or decline our showing.
Goes
Now,
on showing time too.
yeah, you go through showing time. So showing time will automatically, however they want it, whether they get a phone call from showing time or whatever, they're going to get a request that says Ryan Clark wants to see the house at 3:45, Thursday, October 25th. Press yes to accept, no to decline. Because we're in such a crazy market, and I like to differentiate myself, I will call the listing agent on every one of these houses. And let's say Kelly's the listing agent at number one. I'll say, hey, Kelly, it's Ryan. I'm all scheduled to see your house 3:45 on Thursday. What is the feedback then? And she could say, it's been good. It's been great. Or she could say, yeah, Ryan, we already have 37 different offers at 500,000 over asking price. If I know my guy is maxed out at 350 and the house is listed at 350, I'm going to say, all right, Kelly, I do appreciate your time, but I'm going to talk to my client. I don't think we can go up that high. Maybe we'll cancel that. Right? Because again, the only commodity we can't get back in life is time. If I could take that house off the list because it's not going to fit my client's criteria, it took me 5 minutes to call Kelly. Also, if I could take that off the list, let's say we do go to that house and I don't call Kelly. And Craig is in love with that house. He needs that house. He wants that house, only to find out that there's 37 other offers. Well, I didn't do my due diligence as a buyer agent by vetting the property. No longer can we just go schedule a house a week out and expect there to be no activity. We have to be proactive. I'm going to call Ray in the second house. Hey, Ray, it's Ryan Clark. I'm going to be seeing your house tomorrow at 4:00. What's the activity then? You know what, man? To be honest with you, there hasn't been much. No offers, no nothing. And sometimes they might, if you ask questions, sometimes they might be an open book. He might say, yeah, we're thinking about doing a price reduction in the next day or so. Some people are better at holding their cards than others. Some people are awful at poker. Some people are awesome at poker. It just is what it is. So if I have that conversation, I can create a little bit of rapport with the listing agent prior to and get some additional information that I can go back to Craig with. Hey, Craig, just want to let you know that these people, they've had it listed for 45 days. They have to move to North Carolina. They got a job transfer. This might be a house that we should really take an extra look at while we're there. Let's not just browse through it. Let's open up every closet. Let's look in the floors. Let's look at the furnace. Let's really be prepared because we might have to write an offer on this property tonight. Is that okay with you? And Craig might say, yeah, sure. All right. It's a fast-paced market. We understand the market right now. All right. So that's the long answer to your question, Chip.
Does the listing agent have to tell you if they have offers?
No, but it's courtesy to do so, especially when you ask them, do you have any other offers? It would take a real, this is being recorded, so I'm not going to say the 4-letter word that I want to. But yeah, I mean, it's in their best interest to tell you. It's in your best interest. It's in their client's best interest, right? Because if I know that there's multiple offers on it, A, I might not show it, or B, if I know there's multiple offers, I might have a super high offer, right? Because if your clients are still living in that house, they have to leave and be displaced for an hour and a half while I'm showing that house. If they already have multiple offers, the clients might not want to leave, right? So if I already have that information, then perfect, I'm in. Great question. Anybody else have any additional stuff? Awesome. All right, so we are back at 12:30 with Stephanie Kuba talking about relocation and referrals. I will tell you, it is the easiest money you can find through our Berkshire Hathaway network. Make a phone call to Steph, who is absolutely fantastic. She's dynamite. You're going to thoroughly enjoy it. For anybody who hasn't met Steph yet, you're in for a real treat. And I will see you all back at 12:30.
All right.